ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Can I have 1 minute? Just,
sure.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Prabhu. So thank you, everyone, for your patience, and thank you for joining within this stay-home order in Ontario. And we are very blessed to have Rohinipriya Prabhu today among us. Today is the Sunday, 17th of January, 2021. On behalf of ISKCON Scarborough, I would like to welcome each one of you to 10th successive month of virtual classes. Today, we are honored to welcome back His Grace Rohinipriya Das Prabhu to give another inspiring class for ISKCON Scarborough devotees. His first class in 2021 for ISKCON Scarborough devotees. He gives lots of classes through different social media, including Facebook, Zoom, and other medias. His previous virtual classes for us were Cleaning the Temple of the Heart, 2-part series, Pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Honesty, a Rich Legacy, Honey, the Symbol of Sweetness and Prosperity, Genius Dressed in Working Clothes. All our classes are recorded and posted on YouTube. Please search ISKCON Scarborough or visit our ISKCON Scarborough website to benefit from these classes plus several other past lectures. His Grace Rohinipriya Das Prabhu, as you know, especially very known to ISKCON Scarborough devotees, and he is also known to all, almost I would say, all over the world. So ISKCON devotees, they know about Rohinipriya Prabhu because he is very famous and very known to everyone all over the world. He has, as I said, that he actually posts his classes on Facebook too. His Grace Rohinipriya Das Prabhu is a Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor in Surgery. He fills the lives of people with the joy of Krishna consciousness by his practical scriptural discourses. He has been actively distributing the message of the Bhagavad Gita to hundreds, thousands of engineering and medical students and other professionals all over the India, and also he's giving and he's distributing the nectar of Bhagavad Gita through online media towards everyone all over the world. Thank you, Prabhu. To you. So what do you, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Um, so first of all, I would once again like to thank the management of our ISKCON Scarborough Temple, which is situated in Ontario, Canada, for allowing me this opportunity to be able to serve the, the congregation there and the greater diaspora devotee congregation all over the world. It is always very, very pleasant for me to be connected to all the devotees at ISKCON Scarborough. This week, the presentation today is mostly going to be from the great book, the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Um, this book was authored by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Originally, the book was rendered in the Bengali language, which is one of the regional or ethnic languages of India. And in the last century, a great and well-known saintly personality translated this epic, and along with the translation also gave deep insights through his own understandings in the form of his purports in the English language. So now we have the Chaitanya Charitamrita that can be read in the English language, and the author or the person who translated and gave purports to this Bengali epic is His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who is also the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, known as ISKCON, known worldwide as the ISKCON movement. For my own edification and for my own purification, I always try to remember Srila Prabhupada before beginning the presentation, any presentation. I'm sorry that I could not send forth the topic for this presentation today. And I thought a relevant topic would be that which connects to all of us. Recently, I was reading a short excerpt from an essay. And a wonderful story was told there, which is relevant to our topic today. And therefore, I will tell you the story. At religious places where religious discourses are held all over the globe, people congregate on special days, like we congregate, or we used to congregate and have live classes up till recently, like last year or a few months prior to the pandemic coming in. We used to congregate together at our temple, the ISKCON Scarborough temple. Similarly, people congregate at various other institutional places or places of worship or places where discourses can be held. So this story is about such a place. So the speaker, who also happened to be the religious leader of the community, gave a very nice presentation, or so the speaker thought. And the presentation went on for about an hour or so. After the presentation, a little child walked up to the preacher or the teacher. The child was about 4 years old. The child walked up to the teacher or to the person who gave the discourse and offered him a donation of $20. Now, a child offering a donation of $20 makes an impression. So the teacher was all smiles, smiling year from year, or year to year, sorry, smiling year to year, big smile on his face, and looked at the child and he said, "Oh, you enjoyed my presentation so much. Thank you for your donation. This is a sizable donation for a child." And the child said, "Actually, I had no idea what you spoke. And I wasn't really very interested. Children can be quite outspoken." So the child said, I did not find anything interesting in your speech." So the speaker was a little taken aback. And he said, "Then why did you give me this donation?" "Oh, because after your presentation, my mother said that this is the poorest speaker, the poorest preacher that we've had since many years. And it is a kind gesture to give donation to poor people. So there is a pun, not a pun, but there is humor there, that a poor preacher would mean someone whose discourse is not very relevant, or it is not finding connection with the audience. But a child, children, they have different ways to look at life. And therefore, because children practically form at least one third of a population, typically a child is born of a male and female members of a family. So has a mother and a father give birth to a child. So even if a family is very small, like a 3-member unit, considering that there's only one child in the family, then when we realize that at least 33.33% of the world population is children. So it's quite relevant. So children form at least a third of our population, and they form the whole of our future population. So it's childhood and children are very relevant aspects of any society's existence. Hence, it is very important that we remember that we just don't tell our children about the world, but we show them too. Now, many times we may speak a lot about principles and values. Children understand things better when they're able to emulate what is being presented before them. So actions speak louder than words for children. And hence, we should not just try to tell them, we should try to show them through example. So today, I wanted to name the topic of today of our presentation as childhood impressions. And since we are going to speak from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we will quote relevant sections from the Chaitanya Charitamrita related to this childhood impressions. Most of us feeling very grateful for what we have received, and also uh, feeling the responsibility that is there on our shoulders of maintaining that which has been passed on from the previous generations, our ancestors, our forefathers. We try to do our best with our lives. We try to live up to the family name, or we try to live up to the country's aspirations as was put down by the founding fathers, so to say. So we try to live up to our inheritance, and it is important. It is important that we inherit the earth along with its ambience, its values, its uh, existence as living beings, uh, the living earth. It is important that we inherit the earth from our ancestors, but at the same time, it is very, very important, in fact, more important, to know that we have borrowed it from our children. So not only is our present existence an inheritance from our previous generations, it is also what we have borrowed from our future generations. And this is uh, a responsibility, a responsibility that we have on our shoulders, a responsibility in gratitude. We are grateful to have borrowed something from our future generations. And hence, it is the greater responsibility to conserve and to enhance what we have. And we are grateful to have received from our ancestors. And it is of paramount importance, therefore, that we conserve and we enhance what we have received. Hence, life should reflect, every single person's existence should be able to reflect this gratitude in their lives, this understanding of our responsibility in terms of our inheritance and in terms of being the guardians of what belongs to the future generation. Especially with so much emphasis being put on the ecological relevance of our existence as living beings in this universe, especially on this planet. Uh, this statement is very relevant. So, what is childhood? Um, how can we understand how children see the world? In terms of uh, how the general population sees their existence or sees the world around, it is mostly in terms of economic benefits, or what is called as artha in the ancient Vedic texts. Artha means that which is of certain value, that which is of certain relevance to us. It could be in terms of wealth, it could be in terms of anything that we feel is valuable, art, etc., etc., etc. So that is artha. So since the economic perspective um, has a major impact at how we perceive ourselves and the world around us, the economy depends a lot on the population of the youth in a society. So if a large portion of any society is very youthful, then the economy could be strong, or there could be very good projections economically for the future. Uh, Anyone who knows, who studies economy and its impact on the nations, or who understands demographics, basically in terms of age demographics and its effect on economy, we know that many governments around the world, or most of them, uh, they rely on their youthful population. So that is from the economic perspective. And it is important because how the youth is and the way they live their lives and they spend, they uh, exercise their purchasing power defines the economy of the society and the country. So it is an important perspective, and we cannot simply, under any premise, sweep that away. Under any premise, we cannot overlook that. For example, most of our programs, we know, runs on uh, the generous donations that people send forth, and then we use it to purchase things, and this keeps the economy rolling. So the youth is important. So from the economic perspective, the youth of the society is important from a wholesome perspective, from a complete perspective. The children who would form the future youthful population are more important in any population. Because what happens is, as adults, when we already have formed opinions and we have already drawn our value, we have drawn our lines of values and um, traditional practices and life principles, when we have put down uh, um, specific boundaries. We have decided that this is the boundaries within which we are going to act, live our lives. Generally, those boundaries are quite rigid, and there is very less flexibility as an adult. So adults simply follow whatever value system they have established in their lives, generally in a generic sense. So adults follow the path they have accepted in life. With children, it is not like that. Children explore the path and that they are walking on. They are inquisitive, they are curious. They have as yet not formed rigid uh, value systems as much as adults have done. So there is a lot of flexibility, and there is a lot of room for inputs. Hence, it is important to remember that impressions that we receive as adults will be reflected through the value systems that we have already established. Whereas impressions that we receive as children will be a wonderful world of exploration. And that is what childhood is about. Or that is the prism or the eyes through which children see the world. It is quite natural for children to be able to do so. Hence, most of the ancient civilizations, especially the Vedic civilization, would put a lot of emphasis on how family uh, and a society relates with the children that are there in the society or in the family. Uh, One of the ex-presidents of the United States of America uh, made a relevant comment saying that children are the living messages we send to a time we will not see. Many a times when we hear presentations about children and the impressions that can be formed during childhood, as an adult, we relate all of that information and we bring all of that information to our children, forgetting that although we have outlived our lives as a child, there could still be an inner child within us. And it is important for a spiritual practitioner to find that inner child within ourselves. The reason being, as adults, we act responsibly, we accept uh, certain practices in our lives because that is an aspect of responsibility, that you accept certain ways of life. When we walk on these paths, these spiritual paths, or these paths of value systems in our lives, we should walk those paths um, as the inner child within us, with a sense of exploration. Because children explore where adults follow. Many times, these are phrases which help us think. We've heard phrases that children follow what they uh, see as examples. So they are also followers. But typically, a child would always be very inquisitive. If you ask a child, um, a young child, how do you like math? Because math is all about calculations, even for a child. It would be typically any given child, 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 would say that uh, it is difficult. So you asked a child, you know, what makes math difficult? Why do you think math is difficult for you? And the child, and its childlike manner, a typical answer would be interesting. And let me again do that. So a child is asked, why is math so difficult for you? And the child says, because the book is full of problems. So math is about problem solving. But the way a child would answer is different from how an adult would answer. An adult would be focused on solving based on the reasoning that has been already established through years of practice, whereas a child would want to explore alternative methods because that is how a child is curious. So, as spiritual practitioners, we must be we must express our responsibility as adults, and we should express our curiosity as children. We must try and find that inner child within us, meaning we must find ways to be curious, to know more, to find uh, answers um, through more and more understanding, through more and more uh, advancement in our practices or progress in our practices. Mm. So now we will speak about Lord Chaitanya, the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Lord Chaitanya is the same Lord who is revealed in the Vedas as the source of everything. The Sanskrit term Krishna defines the Supreme Lord, the Lord of who is the source of everything and is in everything. As Krishna. Krishna means all attractive. Sarva akarshati iti Krishna. And since the Lord is all attractive, therefore the Lord is full of life or is full of existence, is not inert, complete existence and absence of any inertness or absence of anything which is incomplete. That is how the Vedas would describe, the Upanishad aspect of the Vedas would describe the Supreme Lord. The certain relevant sections from the Upanishads and the Vedic texts like the Rig Veda or the relevant Samhita portions of the Vedas would also mention Lord Krishna as the Supreme Lord. Sarva akarshati iti Krishna. So existence, when we say existence, which means there is life, which means there is activity, it also implies consciousness. And in Sanskrit, consciousness is also is expressed by the term, by the word Chaitan or Chaitana. So the same Supreme Lord Krishna has appeared in the present age of Kali Yuga as Lord Chaitanya. There are some differences according to the mood that the Lord exhibits. The mood is of a devotee, and along with the mood of a devotee, the Lord has also accepted the kanti or the effulgence of his greatest devotee, Srimati Radharani. So, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anna. This is how the Gaudiya Vaishnava literatures describe Lord Chaitanya or Lord Gauranga, which is another name of Lord Chaitanya. So, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Radha Krishna Nahi Anna, is non-different from Radha, the combined form of Shri Radha and Krishna. Lord Chaitanya appeared in Sri Mayapur Dham in Bengal, and at 24 years of age, he took sannyas and he went to Jagannath Puri and took up his residence in Jagannath Puri for another 24 years. Within these 24 years, the first 6 years of this 24 years was spent by Lord Chaitanya by traveling out of Jagannath Puri. So he would be in and out of Jagannath Puri. And he visited many, many places in India, uh, especially in South India. And some of the places in North India that were along the banks of the river Ganga and the river Yamuna. For Lord Chaitanya wanted to visit the birthplace of Lord Krishna on this planet, the holy town of Vrindavan, which is the town in which Krishna appeared. Um, so the holy town of Vrindavan is in a geographical uh, location called as Mathura Mandal. So sometimes the scripture also describes that Krishna appeared, especially the Srimad Bhagavatam would describe that Krishna appeared in the city of Mathura, which is the capital of this tract of land called as Mathura Mandal. It is like a county or a province. Like in Canada, you have provinces and or states. In the United States and in India, we have got states. So Mathura Mandal was like a state. It was a kingdom. The and It had various forests, different subdivisions called as various forests or one. And one of these subdivisions of Mathura Mandal is Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan subdivision is the uh, holy town of Vrindavan. There is the forest of Vrindavan and there is the holy town of Vrindavan too. So the present day Vrindavan that we go to is the holy town of Vrindavan. Lord Chaitanya wanted to visit the place of birth and the places where Lord Krishna performed pastimes. And for that, he would have to travel from Bengal to the central provinces in India where Vrindavan is, which is quite a distance. It's at least about 1,000 miles away from where Lord Chaitanya is, in Jagannath Puri. So Lord Chaitanya, he made his second attempt to travel to Vrindavan. So there's a bit, the description is very, very amazing in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I encourage all of you to please read those descriptions in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Lord Chaitanya, he was living under the sponsorship of the state king of Jagannath Puri and Odisha, so to say. However, the king understood that Lord Chaitanya is the supreme Lord and also was very much dedicated to Lord Chaitanya. King Pratap Rudra was his name. The residents of Jagannath Puri were very much attached to Lord Chaitanya, so much so that Lord Chaitanya was their very life, their very soul. So whenever Lord Chaitanya would not be able to give his darshan in Jagannath Puri, the people would be extremely uh, agitated. They could not. They were in love with Lord Chaitanya. So it was very difficult for Lord Chaitanya to leave Jagannath Puri. Finally, he did make up his mind, and he convinced most of the people that he would be back very soon after visiting Vrindavan. The Lord's appeal to all of them was uh, so touching that the people of Jagannath Puri could not refuse, and they let their very life go away from Jagannath Puri. or that is what everyone thought. So on the day Lord Chaitanya left Jagannath Puri, most of the residents of Jagannath Puri, they gave up their homes and they started following him. They said that wherever he is, that is where we are. So there was practically an exodus of people. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that Lord Chaitanya was so excited with the idea that finally he would be going to Vrindavan, that he was just immersed in the thoughts of Lord Krishna and Shri Vrindavan Dham, and with his arms raised up in the sky, he was just chanting and dancing, and uh, he was in a transcendental mood. And being in this transcendental mood, somehow or the other, by his own desire and his potency, Lord Chaitanya was progressing towards Vrindavan Dham. Now, not only were the residents of Jagannath Puri following him, most of the villages and towns through which Lord Chaitanya passed on this journey, practically people gave up their homes, and men, women, children, the old, the young, the infirm, everyone was so full of enthusiasm, so filled up with enthusiasm and so much uh, uh, having so much of devotional energy that uh, they just unconcerned about their staying arrangements and about their eating needs. They just followed Lord Chaitanya. And it was just the Lord's potency which was maintaining all of them. So hundreds upon thousands of people were following Lord Chaitanya, and they were all immersed in the chanting of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. So Lord Chaitanya was leading all of them without even being aware of it. He made his way from the province of Orissa to Bengal. He reached the banks of the river Ganga, and then he started following her upstream. That is the way to reach Vrindavan from Bengal. So he came to the town of Kulir. And there they did some kirtan for a couple of days, and everyone was just swimming in this ocean of the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, and they were in great ecstasy. And then Lord Chaitanya, rather than move upstream, he took a detour, and he went to a city called as Ramakeli. And some of the people noticed this, and they were wondering that why is Lord Chaitanya going to Ramakeli? There was a reason. In Sri Ramakeli Dham, the place of Ramakeli, lived three brothers. This was a family of very pious people. There were about half a dozen brothers or more. Sometimes it is said that there were 8 to 10 brothers and all siblings, 3 of whom have been mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the Laghu Bhagavad Toshini, the history of these brothers is explained to a certain extent. It seems that originally their names were Amar Santosh and Vallabha. However, after meeting Lord Chaitanya, their names became Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Sri Anupam. And how that happened, and this rechristening, receiving these new names, happened on this visit of Lord Chaitanya. And this visit of Lord Chaitanya explained in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the Chaitanya Bhagavat also. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, specifically, the meeting of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, which the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, this meeting has been described without uh, mentioning their names. So many scholars and many acharyas have connected the two. The Chaitanya Bhagavat simply says that certain brahmana or certain brahmanas, they met with Lord Chaitanya. So when Lord Chaitanya he came to the town of Ramakeli, practically thousands upon thousands of, hundreds upon thousands of, there's this huge crowd of people were following him. In fact, people were so moved by Lord Chaitanya's, by seeing Lord Chaitanya, just by seeing his form or seeing him or hearing him chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra or seeing him dance. They were so moved that they had tears in their eyes constantly. And they did not feel any fatigue or any hunger or thirst. They were practically free from any kind of worldly lamentation. They were completely in ecstatic joy. Although they had tears in their eyes, their hearts were jumping in joy and happiness, full of happiness. Was they their lives were filled with happiness, divine happiness. And the others who could not follow Lord Chaitanya due to certain reasons, they would just offer obeisances to Lord Chaitanya as he departed. And many of them would dig up the earth that Lord Chaitanya was walking on so that they could collect the dust of his lotus feet, a practice that is understood by Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So the Chaitanya Bhagavat describes that practically there were hundreds of pits, hundreds of holes, thousands of holes on these paths that people had created by digging up the earth and just collecting that earth and keeping it themselves. They would smear their body with that earth, the dust of Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, every single day. So this huge crowd came to the town of Ramakeli, and Ramakeli also happened to be the capital of uh, the king of the province of Bengal. He had his capital palace there, and the king, Nawab Hussain Shah, was an extremely cruel person. He was a zealot. He practiced his faith with utmost rigidity, and he was extremely envious of those who did not follow his faith or path. Extremely uh, envious of them. Still, he was a king, and he did receive taxes from different sections of society. So it was important that he at least show that he treated people with some respect, and so he tried to do a balancing act. Since Lord Chaitanya was chanting and dancing with hundreds and thousands of people, this news reached the king. And he also received information of Lord Chaitanya's activities through his spies. And he saw that his spies were undergoing uh, certain transformations which made him very thoughtful. So he called for the chief inspector or a very close aide. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, the name is called as Keshav Khan. In Chaitanya Charitamrita is called as Keshav Chhatri. So the king was a Yavana king, and Keshav Chhatri, Keshav, so was of the Hindu faith. The king had employed many people of the Hindu faith, which was outside the faith that he practiced. This faith was outside of the faith that he practiced. But still, he employed them because they were very intelligent people, and he needed them for his administration. So he asked Keshav Chhatri about this person who had come to Ramakeli. Now, Keshav Chhatri, being of very mild and not mild, but being a pious person, uh, wanted to play down the um, the the person the coming of Lord Chaitanya to that place, because he realized that if the king, due to his envious disposition towards others, practitioners of faith, uh, understood how Lord Chaitanya is um, influencing the minds of people, then the king could uh, he could uh, hurt or harm Lord Chaitanya. So, uh, out of a sense of duty, out of a sense of wanting to protect Lord Chaitanya, he tried to downplay uh, the the presence of Lord Chaitanya in front of the king. He said, "Oh, actually, it is just an ordinary sannyasi with a few followers uh, who has come to Ramakeli, and he will be very soon gone. You know, so many people like him come and go." And the king said, "I don't think so. I have seen my own spies who have tried to gather information about him. I have seen the transformation that has happened within them. Some of them are chanting the names of Lord Hari, some of them are chanting the names of Lord Krishna. And these are spies who practice the faith that I practice. And within our faith, we do not accept these names for the Lord. However, I can also see that they have this ecstatic symptoms. So plus, I have lived in this world. I know people do not like me. I know a large part of my subject, a very significant percentage of my subjects, they hate me for who I am. I'm still the king. I know that. In fact, I understand that to keep a person um, or to make a person work for you, you have to give them benefits. I employ so many people. If I do not give them salary for a particular month, then they will just simply give up my service, and they will go elsewhere if I don't pay them. No one is serving me out of affection, or very few people are serving me out of affection. This They simply do service because it gives them certain remuneration. And I've heard that this saintly person has hundreds upon thousands of followers, and they have been with him for days and days, and he isn't paying them a single cent. So they are least concerned about their maintenance, and they are just associating with him out of affection for him. So I realize within my heart that the same Lord that I within my faith call as Khuda, and the Hindus call as Hari, that same Lord has appeared in the form of this sannyasi. This is what my heart is telling me. And then the king became a little pensive, thoughtful. So Keshav Khatri, he left that place, but he was concerned for the well-being of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. She approached certain ministers of the king, whose names were Shakar Malik and Dabir Khas, later on to be known as Sanatan Goswami and Rupa Goswami, and informed them of of the conversation that he had with the king. The king was thoughtful about what Keshav Khatri had said, or Keshav Khatri sometimes is called as, what he had said, and he wasn't satisfied. So he called for his uh, ministers, Shakar Malik and Dabir Khas, and they came to him. And the king, he again explained to them about his feelings for Lord Chaitanya, and he said, "What do you think?" And they said, "My dear king, the king is supposed to be the representative of the Supreme Lord. He is Naradeva, and thus the king has has a special position in this world, on this planet. Since you are the king, you are the representative of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is a Lord that is inspiring you from within the heart. And yes, definitely, what you are being inspired by is the truth. That that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead." Hearing this, uh, the king, he said, "I pass an order that no one shall disturb the sannyasi. Let him go wherever he wants. Let him visit whoever he wants to visit. Let him provide him all facilities. I am so blessed that he has placed his lotus feet in our country, and in my capital city." Shakar Malik and Dabir Khas, they uh, took permission of the king and they left his presence. However, they realized that the king could not be trusted. Right now, uh, he feels respectful towards Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But the next moment, his envy could come forth. So that night, they decided to visit uh, Lord Chaitanya, and they decided to, and they hoped to have an audience with him. So Lord Chaitanya, uh, he was he was very close to the river bank, staying under a tree. Sometimes it is called as a banyan tree, and Narhari Chakravarti in the Bhakti Ratnakari says that it is a Keli Kadamba tree. In the uh, Navdeep Dham Parikrama, which was a book authored by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains how Nityananda Prabhu uh, was blessing Jiva Goswami. And Jiva says that Lord Chaitanya, he remembered seeing Lord Chaitanya under a tree. If we go to Sri Ramakeli Dham today, we'll find a small temple dedicated to Jiva Goswami. And something very, very, very special happened on that particular day about 500 years ago. Uh, Amar, Santosh, and Vallabha, the three brothers, uh, they disguised themselves as ordinary people so that no one could recognize them. And they came to this tree where Lord Chaitanya was sitting with thousands of people who were all chanting with him, and the sound was resounding throughout the universe. And they saw Lord Chaitanya, who looked so effulgent, and feeling themselves very, very unqualified. At the same time, wanting to convey um, a warning to Lord Chaitanya, they approached Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur. And Nityananda and Haridas Thakur, they embraced Rup, Shakar Malik and the Birkhas. And they brought them to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu glanced upon them, and what he saw touched his heart, because Rupa and Sanatana Goswami had taken a position of extreme humility. They had tied a cloth around their neck, which basically meant that they were uncivilized people, and they held straw in their teeth. Uh, Considering themselves, this act shows that one is lower than an animal, um, does not really have good intelligence. So, extreme humility. And with folded palms, they offered prostrated obeisances to Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya encouraged them to uh, get up. And overwhelmed with joy and with such humility filled in their hearts, they began to cry tears, like torrents and torrents of tears. Lord Chaitanya blessed them and he said, "Please be peaceful." Again, the brothers took straw in their teeth and again they offered obeisances to the Lord. And the Lord encouraged them to get up again. And then the two brothers started offering prayers to the Lord with folded palms. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the most merciful savior of the fallen souls. All glories to the Supreme Personality of God. Sir, we belong to the lowest class of men, and our associates and our employment are also of the lowest type. Therefore, we cannot introduce ourselves to you. We feel very much ashamed standing before you. Mattulyo nasti papatma naparadhi cha kaschana parihare pilajjame kim bruve purushottama. Dear Lord, Mattulyo nasti papatma. There is no one more sinful than us. Na paradhi cha kaschana. And there is none an offender like us. Even if we wanted to mention our sinful activities, we would immediately become ashamed. And what to speak of giving them up? So they felt ashamed of the fact that they were serving a person who was so envious towards all living entities. And envy is very contagious. So they felt that they were contaminated by this envy. The king was envious and they were ministers to the king for a long, long time. Having said that, the brothers expressed their hope. Dear Lord, you have incarnated to deliver the fallen souls. You should consider that in this world there is none so fallen as us. You have delivered the two brothers Jagai and Madhai, but to deliver them, you did not have to exert yourself very much. Jagai and Madhai were fallen uh, uh, sons of Brahmanas, but they had never served an envious person, a Yavana. And therefore, Rup and Sanatan, they felt that they were more fallen than Jagai and Madhai. It would be very, I would want to encourage all of our listeners to read about how Lord Chaitanya, he saved Jagai and Madhai. Jagai and Madhai had just one fault. They were addicted to sinful activities. However, volumes of sinful activities can be burned simply to ashes by a dim reflection of the chanting of your holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. One of the names of Lord Chaitanya is Nimai. And sometimes when Jagai and Madhai would see Lord Chaitanya, who was famous as a scholar then, as Nimai Pandit, they would call him, "Oh Nimai, oh Nimai." And in this way, inadvertently, they were chanting the Lord's holy names. So Jagai and Madhai uttered your holy name by way of blaspheming you. by way of ridiculing you. Fortunately, that holy name became the cause of their deliverance. This is called as Namabhas. Sorry, this is the glory of the holy. Sometimes, or when we chant the holy names in the beginning stages, we may still commit offenses toward the holy names, but that is called the clearing stage. Now, the benefit of the clearing stage is that when we chant the holy names and unconsciously, unknowingly, there are still some offenses that are being committed. The holy names, by their potency, still continue purifying our hearts till the time we come to the Namabha stage, the next stage where we are free from offense. So we are millions and millions of times inferior to Jagai and Madhai. We are more degraded, more fallen, more sinful than they. Jagai Madhai hoite koti koti guna, adhama patita papi ami dui jana. Mlecha jati, mlecha sevi, kori mlecha karma, go brahmana drohi shange, amara shangama. Actually, we belong to the caste of fallen people, meat eaters, because we are servants of mlechas or meat eaters. Indeed, our activities are exactly like those of meat eaters because we always associate with such people. We are inimical towards the cows and the brahmanas. Rup and Sanatan, or as they were known as the Bir Khas and Shakar Malik then, were vegetarians. But they considered themselves to be meat eaters because they were associating with meat eaters. That is how they felt in the presence of Lord Chaitanya. Due to their abominable activities, they felt that they were bound by their neck and hands, and they had been thrown into a ditch filled with abominable stool-like objects of material sense enjoyment. This is how Rup and Sanatan Goswami were feeling. And then they submitted their prayer to Lord Chaitanya. No one within the three worlds is sufficiently powerful to deliver us, my dear Lord. You are the only savior of the fallen souls. Therefore, there is none but you. Amara uddharite boli nahi tribhuvane patita pavana tumi shavetama bine. If you simply deliver us by your transcendental strength, and certainly your name as Patita Pavan will be mm, will be proven. Patita Pavan means the savior of the fallen. And if you can save us, then your name as Patita Pavan will be proven. It will be established. And when they were speaking like this, we are the most fallen. Please show us mercy. Your mercy is most successful, dear Lord. Let the power of your mercy be exhibited throughout the entire universe. If you are not merciful upon us, then it will be very, very difficult to find more suitable candidates for your mercy. How are you going to fulfill the meaning of the word Patita Pavan, my dear Lord, if you do not deliver us? So, in great humility, there was this challenge to Lord Chaitanya. We are extremely depressed at being unfit candidates for your mercy. Yet, since we have heard your transcendental qualities, we are very much attracted to you. Like a dwarf who wants to capture the moon, we are trying to capture your mercy. Your mercy is like the moon. We are like dwarfs. We are trying to jump up to catch the moon. What is the possibility? We are completely unfit. A desire to receive your mercy is still awakening within our minds. This is hope. This is how a devotee feels uh, intensely connected to Krishna through such hope. Through serving you only, one is freed from all material desires and is completely pacified. When shall we engage as a permanent eternal servant and always feel joyful to have such a fitting master? This was a prayer submitted by Yamunachari in Stotra Ratna. In his Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after hearing their prayers, uh, he told the two brothers, "You are actually my very old servants. I know about you. You used to write letters to me." So, feeling very desolate, uh, Sanatan Goswami, being encouraged by his mother and also Rupa Goswami, would write letters of supplication to Lord Chaitanya for many, many years. However, they had never received any reply. Lord Chaitanya had told them, "I received your letters, and now seeing you, my heart is breaking, seeing your humility. From this day, your names will be changed to Srila Rupa and Sri Sanatan." And the third brother, Anupam, Sri Vallabh was also there, and he got the name Anupam. That is revealed in the Bhakti Ratnakar. And Lord Chaitanya he encouraged them. Now, this was seen by a little child, the son of Vallabha. The child was only 4 or 5 years of age. He saw Lord Nityananda, he saw Haridas Thakur, he was completely overwhelmed by their effulgent personalities. Just Lord Nityananda's grace, his smile, his persona, and Haridas Thakur's simplicity, his compassion that permeated his existence, his form, affected the heart of the child. And then he saw Lord Chaitanya. He saw his uncles, and he saw his own father uh, with folded palms addressing Lord Chaitanya. He saw Lord Chaitanya in his utmost majesty. He saw Lord Chaitanya in his utmost compassionate form. As a young child, it was like uh, immense volts of this power that was falling upon his heart. Such powerful experiences, and only by the Lord's grace, by the Lord's internal potency, was the heart of the child able to sustain all that powerful inputs that the child was receiving. This child was called Jiva. His uncles had named him Jiva. And very soon, his uncles, after meeting Lord Chaitanya, they retired and they went to Vrindavan and they became mendicants. And growing up, he would hear about them. He, in his teens, he heard about how his father also completely devoted to Lord Gauranga uh, during his travels, gave up his life. He left this world. Um, and that affected him. He asked his mother for guidance, and his mother said, simply immerse yourself in the thoughts of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu. The child uh, was dedicated to the worship of Sri Krishna and Balaram in the temple of Sri Radha Madan Mohan, and that was established by Sanatan Goswami in Ramakeli. That was their uh, family temple. And in dreams, he would see Krishna and Balaram appear to him. He would see Krishna and Balaram transform into Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and then he would wake up and he'd cry and cry and cry, tears of separation from them. His mother was quite old, and very soon she was about to leave the world. And she told him, "My dear son," there are various different versions of the story. However, she told her son that you should not waste your life anymore staying here. Go to your uncles, find them, take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nityanand Prabhu is, by then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had disappeared. Nityanand Prabhu is still present on this planet. Go to him, my dear child. And according to certain versions, his mother left her body and Jiva performed the final rites, and he went to meet Sri Chaitanya, Sri Nityananda Prabhu. And when he met Nityananda Prabhu, that is where, according to Navadip uh, Dham Parikrama book, he mentioned that he was just 3 years old and he saw Lord Chaitanya sitting under that tree. And Lord Gauranga, he called out to him and he touched the child. He lifted him up and put him on his lap and gave him a lot of affection. And he told the child, he instructed the child, make Krishna the goal of your life and do not ever get into any worldly uh, matters. Do not engage yourself in any worldly matters. So Jiva Goswami spent his entire uh, teenage years, his childhood, his teenage years, with the scholars of Srimad, who had studied Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic literatures. And after his mother gave him permission, he went to Navadvip, met Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu blessed him to go to Vrindavan. And on the way in Varanasi, he asked him to study Vedanta from Madhu Sudana Vachasapati, which he did. And he became the foremost student. Within a few months, he was the foremost student of Vedanta. And then he left for Sri Vrindavan Dham. And there he met up with his uncles, Srila Rup Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. And it was such a wonderful union. And they were crying tears and they had so many ecstatic symptoms and they embraced him again and again and again and they kissed him, his body all over, and they blessed him again and again and again. And they mm, gave him permission to stay in Sri Vrindavan. In this month of Paush, uh, this this fortnight of the uh, waxing phase of the moon, called as the Shukla Paksha. This is Pushya Shukla Paksha or Paush uh, Gaura Paksha according to a Gaudiya Vaishnava calendar. Um, on the, I think the fifth day, the Panchami, is which was a couple of days ago, was the disappearance day of Srila Jiva Goswami. And this is where I would like to end my presentation. Um, there are so many other relevant um, things that can be shared about Srila Jiva Goswami, but I have already gone much beyond my time. I'm so very sorry. I've spoken almost half an hour about over time. Um, Once the Dalai Lama, he quoted saying that it is vital that when we educate our children, then we should educate their intelligence, their brains. However, we should not neglect to educate their hearts too. And we see through the pastimes that have been described in our literatures, uh, especially today, what we described about Srila Jiva Goswami, um, how just a moment's association with great personalities affected his heart. So I'm sorry for having gone beyond time, half an hour, 35 minutes beyond time. I'll stop here. Shri Jiva Goswami Pad ki jai, Jiva Goswami Pad Tirabhav Tithi ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. If there are any questions,
Hare Krishna Prabhu. It was a
comments,
wonderful class
yes.
and very inspiring, and we learned a lot. And thank you all the devotees for taking your time. Prabhu mentioned that we went beyond half an hour, like that's fine, but that's our bliss, and we are very blessed that Rohinipriya Prabhu gave us more bonus. Like he generally gives class around 1 hour, but we got him for more than like half an hour more. Thank you very much. Prabhu, there is a question. There is one question from one devotee said, could you please advise of any activities or whose books for teens to read as a starting point to explore the Shastras so they can develop a good understanding of Krishna consciousness?
So, if I understand the question correctly, what book or shastra should one recommend for a person to get um,
Krishna consciousness. Thank you,
good
Prabhu.
understanding of Krishna
Yeah,
consciousness?
right.
Um, Srila Prabhupada always wanted us to introduce Srimad Bhagavad Gita as uh, a very good book to have a concise understanding of Krishna consciousness or God consciousness. At the same time, uh, he felt very much motivated to translate the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he wanted the world to know about the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and specifically he wanted the world to be uh, able to taste the wonderful pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I personally, from my own experience too, I have found that the Bhagavad Gita is very appropriate. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translated and purports given by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. There is another book that ISKCON prints and which could also be helpful is The Science of Self-Realization. It is very well compiled and especially could appeal to the modern intellect. Uh, Within my heart, there is a special place for Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavat, but especially Chaitanya Charitamrita, which has been translated by Srila Prabhupada. So, and further on, one could read the Srimad Bhagavatam. Is that all right?
Thank you for wonderfully answered. And the president of this ISKCON Scarborough, Daruka Mataji, actually thanked you. And she said that we are looking forward to your next Nectarian class.
Thank you so much.